Hello, I'm Claudine Wong, anchor for KTVU Channel 2 and your moderator today. Welcome to a roundtable of the candidates running for State Assembly District 15. District 15 includes the cities of Concord, Brentwood, Clayton, Martinez, Antioch, Pittsburgh, and Pleasant Hill, as well as portions of the city of Walnut Creek. Today's roundtable is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Elections Division, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley and West Contra Costa, and Contra Costa Television, with support from the cities of Concord and Walnut Creek. We are recording this roundtable live in the Martinez studios of Contra Costa Television. And the candidates participating are Anna Marie Avila Farias, Karen Mitchoff, and Monica Wilson. Sonia Lito could not attend. Now, prior to the start of the program, the candidates drew lots to determine their speaking order, and we are going to begin with Anna Marie Avila Farias.
All right, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Anna Marie Avila Farias. I'm a third-generation Contra Costa County resident, proudly raising my children in my hometown, Martinez. I come to you all with 30 years of public service experience. I have practice in the space of housing and economic and community development. I've been fortunate to be able to work in major counties such as San Francisco County, Alameda, Contra Costa, and I am a gubernatorial appointee to Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom, now serving at the state level as a gubernatorial appointment to the California Housing Finance Agency Board. My experience is very transferable to the state legislature, and I hope to be able to earn the support and garner your vote on March 5th. I have been in elected office as well. I have served as a planning commissioner for over a decade, a city councilwoman, and now serve on the County Board of Education.
All right, Karen Mitchoff, your 1 minute opening statement.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Karen Mitchoff, and I am running, as you know, for Assembly District 15. I have 40 years of public service experience, the last 12 serving as the county supervisor for District 4. I also served on the Pleasant Hill City Council, one term as mayor, and in the Special District of Pleasant Hill Recreation and Park District. As a county supervisor, I've had the responsibility of dealing with the state government as they pass down mandates not only to the county but to the cities. And I have the most experience dealing with the regional issues, having served on the Association of Bay Area Counties, on the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and the Delta County Coalition. I look forward to our discussion today with my two candidates, other candidates, and thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Monica Wilson, your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Monica Wilson, and I'm a candidate for Assembly District 15. I thank you again for having me here today. For the past 2 decades, I've been a community organizer, a public servant, and an advocate in Contra Costa County. I was the first African-American woman ever elected to the Antioch City Council back in 2012. I'm currently in my 4th term and serving as mayor pro tem of that city. My work includes both regional, local, and statewide participation on issues around human trafficking and sexual violence. I've been an advocate on mental health, bringing a 24-hour mental health response team to the city of Antioch, and I've been there to support not only our youth, but those who are suffering from mental illness and those who may be evicted from their homes. My work has really been strong around advocacy as well as collaboration, and I look forward to continuing our conversation today so you can hear about me. Again, my name is Monica Wilson, and I'm a candidate for Assembly District 15. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's dive right into the issues and get straight to it. And we talk about budget a lot and budget priorities. So I want to give each of you a chance to kind of talk about your priority in that budget and how it best represents the district. And I'll start with you, Ms. Mitchoff.
The number one priority and the number one responsibility for government is public safety, followed thereafter by public health. They're interchangeable. Constituents have a right to feel free and safe in their homes and their communities, and to know that the public health not only is taking care of them, but those around us. I'm very proud that one of the initiatives that the Board of Supervisors worked on several years ago was Contra Costa Cares. This is because the county is always the last resort for those who have no insurance, and obviously in this county a lot of that is our undocumented population. So what we did is we collaborated with local hospitals and put money in so that our undocumented individuals could get the same health care and be on the same health care plan, actually the one I'm on, Contra Costa Health Plan. And therefore, we would be able to do preventive and interventive work. Relative to the state budget, you know, when I first decided to run, we had last year's plethora of an abundance, and now that's not there. So I'm very familiar with budgets, having worked with the county budget. I heard earlier it's now $5.5 billion. When I was on the board, we were up to about 4.75. A lot of that money, of course, is restricted, and there's very few general dollars. But the state continues to ask more and more of local government and doesn't always provide the resources which by law they're supposed to. As a county supervisor, I take that experience up to Sacramento and will work with others along with state employees who are working on programs in order to make sure that the local government gets the resources it needs, because we are dealing with mental health crisis, with homeless, our transportation, water quality, air quality. But again, my top priorities are public safety and public health, followed by all the other things that we work on in this county. But one of the reasons I'm running is because I have an elder mother, and a lot of us are dealing with aged parents, and we need more resources for that population. They're just not there, and we're reaching that point where we will have more seniors as part of the population than anyone else, and we need to put the resources before we get to that, as we call it these days, a fiscal cliff. I'm also concerned about gun safety and gun violence, and so that's the fourth area. Education is important, but
All right.
those are the four key areas.
Okay, perfect. And we'll dive down a little deeper in some of those issues coming up. But Ms. Wilson, your priorities.
Yeah, my priorities will, to begin with my priorities, economic equity, social services and public safety would be a tie for me, around also with educational access. But with that being said, recently with our budget shortfall, the governor is now saying 38 billion, it may be 68 billion, we don't know, it may be a number in between. But what I do like in the governor's plan is he's reserving 13 billion from reserves around social services. And so that's definitely an area we can drill down into, whether it's for our unhoused community, whether it's mental health, whether it's a survivor of human trafficking trying to make their life better and get back to a more stabilized life. And then he's also leaving another 11 billion for rainy day. So really thinking about the budget deficit and how that fits, how my priorities are going to fit into that, we really have to be careful. That's why I really stress the importance of once somebody is elected and gets up to Sacramento, how well are they going to work with the current legislation that's still going to be there? How are they going to be able to collaborate to make sure that all the communities throughout the state are being covered, whether it's a social issue, whether it's economic development, or access to education? So it's really our priorities, but how are our priorities going to fit into the budget, this deficit and the governor's plan?
Step one, step two, but
Yes.
it sounds like equity and care is on the top of your
Yes.
list. Okay, thank you. Ms. Avila Farias, your priorities?
Yes, so first of all, I'd like to direct the public to be able to go to my website. I actually have 12 priorities, but in the essence of time here, I will focus on the top 3 for me, which is going to be public safety, education, and housing, along with healthcare and dealing with poverty issues. But before that, we are dealing with a $58 billion state deficit, and so that number 1 priority is going to see how legislators right now align the budget and what is going to be cut, and really projecting for the future of making sure that we stay financially solid, more saving, less spending, and realigning programs and revisiting legislation that maybe didn't really work, and improving it in that space. So I think that is going to be the order for myself, is really understanding where the budget deficit is going to land and how the legislature is going to recalculate that. As the only candidate that has already been supported by over 1 1/3 of the legislature. I feel that they are welcoming and embracing my qualifications as someone with a background in housing and economic community development. That policy experience, hands-on, is really needed, and I also have it from the dais, but actually being a practitioner in the space of dealing with some serious state issues around revenue and our housing issue. Public safety is critical. We are seeing what is happening. You yourself, we just talked earlier, we're a victim of a crime. It is rampant throughout the state of California, and we really, as communities, need to recalibrate what is going on and revisit Prop 47 and support our law enforcement with more staffing, retention, and our obligations there, and doing more community trust work. Housing, which is my subject matter expertise, we have spent at the state as a board of director, we funded $5 billion towards addressing the housing crisis. I'm the only candidate that has occupied that space for the last 30 years as a professional, being able to finance affordable housing developments throughout the state of California, here in the Bay Area, from San Francisco, Contra Costa to Alameda. So I know firsthand what we're going to need, poverty, bridging that gap in equity of, revenue, poverty, and a housing crisis.
All right, let's drill down a little bit more into, you guys all mentioned law enforcement or in terms of crime and retail theft, Prop 47, all of these issues have been kind of big on people's plates of what they want to talk about and what they're dealing with in their own communities. Ms. Wilson, I'll start with you in terms of how we handle and how you view the situation in terms of where the State Assembly steps in making sure that these issues of retail theft, crime, and policing and prosecution, how we deal with all of it.
Thank you for asking that. With in relationship to Prop 47, we really need to address it as it's organized retail crime. Prop 47 was passed by the voters, so voters are going to have to come back to the ballot for it to be revoted on. California right now has the minimum of $950 for it to register as a crime, but compared to other states like Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, where their threshold is $1,000 to $2,500. We currently have a bill, AB 331, by Assembly Member Joan Sawyer, that takes care of the loophole on the organized crime. If we see a crime involving 2 or more individuals with the intent to sell, that does lower that threshold and does make it a crime. But we need to also peel the onion on organized crime, because there is an individual preying on low-income, vulnerable communities to get them to go out and do these thefts, and they're the ones organizing it and making sure they're behind the scenes and they're protected. We need to go after the individuals who are organizing these crimes.
Okay. Ms. Avila Farias, you touched on it briefly, but...
Yeah, no, I think, like any good public policy, the state legislature does anywhere around 2,000 bills a year. It's not sometimes about volume, but quality of legislation, and Prop 47 is one of those bills that needs to be revisited, not layered with more legislation. It needs to have an assessment. When we pass legislation, we need to be able to review, quantify it. Is it doing what with the spirit and the intent of the voters and what the legislation was? What's working, what's not working, and if it's not working, clearly, like Prop 47 is not working, we need to revise the legislation to meet our community needs.
Okay, and I'm going to keep us moving so we have enough time to hit some of these other issues, but let you weigh in on.
I agree. We do need to look and revise Prop 47. As many people may know, if they go to my website, I began my public service career working for the county sheriff's department. I have family members in law enforcement. I am a victim. Also, as a family member, my brother was murdered. So I clearly understand some of these issues. And what we've all learned is that a criminal tends to escalate if they are not caught and appropriately incarcerated. And the purpose of Prop 47 was to bring people, it wasn't just the threshold, but it did bring people back into the community, but we were not given the resources in order for better law enforcement to watch that. So I'm a very strong law and order candidate. I believe in restorative justice, but we need to, the pendulum is just swinging too much back and forth, and And I believe our community, our citizens, they want stricter and stronger law enforcement. They need to feel safe. They may not themselves be a victim, but they don't feel safe.
Okay. I'm going to go to housing and homelessness, obviously very big topics. If you can briefly just tell us your priorities in terms of how you address those two connected concerns, if elected. Ms. Avila Farias, let's start with you.
Well, housing is a very complex subject matter area, and as a practitioner for the past 30 years, I've gotten to see decades of what's worked, best practices, and the worst. We obviously need more funding through tax credits to have investment come to California so that we can do more lending to address the crisis around construction. We also need the federal government to step up the funding around the housing and urban development. Most people do not realize that they provide the funding to the most vulnerable and the lower income of our population, which is less than 30% of the Bay Area, our community income. So we need to reestablish funding on those to be able to address very different segments of our population. So funding is critical with tax credits, housing bonds, to be able to address it and adequately fund the programs from homelessness to permanent housing to transitional housing.
Ms. Mitchoff?
Housing and homeless seem like they go together to some extent, but they really don't, because a lot of people who are homeless are fighting addiction issues and or mental health issues. We need to have more resources to address those issues and get people into housing. One of the problems of getting homeless people into housing is there are rules and programs and practices to follow, and that doesn't always work. So I am supporting the governor's Care Court program in order to help with that. As to housing, we need to make an environment easier for developers to get going and building. Obviously, right now, financing is difficult, but the feds yesterday, the economic news is good. I hope and understand that rates will continue to come down, and we need to put policies in place that help developers build housing.
All right. Ms. Wilson?
You know, in the city of Antioch, I also feel the same, that housing and the unhoused are two kind of, they're related, but there's two issues going on there. In the city of Antioch, we did partner with a developer that built affordable housing with resources on site in the northern eastern part of our city. So we were really proud of that. We also, on the unhoused side, the city leased a hotel where there was a lot of drug activity going on. We leased this hotel, renovated. It has 130 some odd rooms to house our unhomeless, but it's transitional housing. So they're met there with resources to get them into stabilized housing. This was the city taking the initiative to invest in that. I do think now that we know the governor is having a surplus around social issues, using that surplus to help fund projects that help lower income, but also using the funding to get that missing middle, the people that are working but make too much to be considered low income, but not making enough to get to buy their house. So really looking at funding around that, and then going back to resources. As far as the unhoused, we see multiple people. It's either yes, maybe addiction, maybe mental health, but we do see youth that are kicked out of their homes for whatever a lifestyle they choose. We see trafficking survivors that have sometimes escaped their traffickers, have no place to go. Really having the resources there in both affordable housing as well as transitional housing, making sure that the resources are there to get them off their feet.
We have time to tackle kind of one more spot, and I want to make sure that we tackle infrastructure, because from everything from we're talking about helping agencies like BART to high-speed rail to a lot of other infrastructure issues, your position on that and your priorities infrastructure-wise.
Well, I was fortunate to serve on the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. We're a self-help county, as everybody knows. We pay now I believe it's still a 0.5-cent sales tax. We did the Caldecott Tunnel fourth bore, widening Highway 4 out into East County, the 680-24. There's other infrastructure too, the Delta, very important not to have the tunnel built. Infrastructure, it's very difficult because there are funding partners from the feds, the state, and the county. The county has done a good job of that, but it would be my job to make sure those dollars get here so that we continue doing that. We're doing autonomous vehicles. relative to high-speed rail. That's iffy. Next year, or pardon me, 2026, there's going to be a ballot measure, again, to tax us, and I'm opposed to that because it will impact Contra Costa residents more than anybody else, and we just can't keep putting more and more burden on those who need to depend on their cars to get across the bridge.
Okay, Ms. Wilson.
We definitely need to look at a couple of issues. Definitely around, I agree around transportation. And transportation, we need to look at more seamless transportation. If you go to cities across the United States, transportation's under one umbrella. Here in the Bay Area in particular, it's kind of disjointed. And we really need to look at ways of how we get people from point A to point B seamlessly. I was just recently at a national conference. We talked about public transportation, about moving to electric buses and hydrogen buses. I'm currently a board member with Tri-Delta Transit, and that's something we're pushing. We're also pushing a model that is that's also a nationwide model around kind of a shared driver with transportation where it is more eco-friendly and uses smaller buses, so it's a smaller carbon footprint. And we're finding nationwide that more communities like that because the bus transportation are meeting them where they're at in the community. And I'm going to say really quick about environmental impacts. We really need to look at a lot of the audits of different industries that may be causing pollution to our environment, whether it's around water, whether it's around gas, what's being emitted into our environment. And I know that's my time.
Okay, and Ms. Avila Farias, I don't want to take away time from you, so infrastructure, transportation, go.
No worries. Well, I want to be the visionary of bringing, changing Contra Costa County, of really creating live-work spaces, and the model of commuting is no longer valid for communities raising children. So I think looking at infrastructure from that space of trying to create environments with housing and job centers in our communities versus creating which less burdens our infrastructure, but also investing in tax credits and bonds. Taxing community members for transportation would defeat our purpose here economically, especially when the rise of poverty in California, single women in particularly are living in poverty. 30% of Californians are in poverty. And so we have to be very careful when we want to impose taxes on community members, especially the most vulnerable. So infrastructure, especially as we transition from alternative fuel, we don't have the infrastructure for electric cars throughout the state of California. So that's a huge infrastructure project that is going to need timing and innovation around it and how we are going to do it. But there's creative ways, like I said, through tax and credits for investment and bonds before we get into taxes.
Yeah, certainly. I'd like to thank you as a really important discussion and so many important issues facing the state and never enough time to talk about all of them. So we will have some closing statements. I'd like to thank you guys for being a part of this, and thank you for your closing statement. And we're going to reverse the order of how we drew numbers in the beginning. And so Monica Wilson, the closing statement, 2 minutes starts with you.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. Again, my name is Monica Wilson, and I'm a candidate for Assembly District 15. I want to reiterate my time here in Contra Costa working around public safety issues, being an advocate, whether it's for those that are commonly heard or those whose voices are never heard. I've been a champion around issues around mental health, human trafficking, sexual violence, and transitional housing, and I want to continue that work. I've been endorsed by the California Democratic Party, along with California Building Trades Council and California Labor Council. Organizations like Environmental Voters of California, Planned Parenthood, and Equality California have supported my campaign. As you see, I'm a collaborator. I go out into the community and I talk to individuals. I talk to community groups. I want to hear everybody's voices, whether we agree or we don't agree, because that's the way we're going to make change here in Contra Costa County, and that's how our voices are going to be heard up in Sacramento. Again, my name is Monica Wilson, and I'm a candidate for Assembly District 15, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Karen Mitchoff, your closing statement.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters and to Contra Costa Television and to you, Ms. Wong, for having us here today so that we could share with you all our concerns and our proactive concepts on how to address these very important issues in California. I want to stress again that I have served on all of the regional bodies in the Bay Area working with other local elected officials along with state and federal representatives to address housing, to address transportation, to address hair quality. I've been endorsed by Senator Bill Dodd. I've been endorsed by former Congressman George Miller and former Assembly Member Susan Bonilla. They all recognize in me someone who can get things done, who works with everyone. I'm a pragmatic politician. I look for ways that we can solve problems and not just sit and talk about them. And I respectfully ask for your vote on March 5th, and thank you for your time in watching this program.
Thank you. Anna Marie Avila Farias.
Thank you. Thank you, Contra Costa. Looking forward to humbly request your support and vote on March 5th. I come to you as the only candidate who was raised in Contra Costa County, not only raised, but also a practitioner in our community that has been able to work in each of the 19 cities through my professional career. I come to you with 30 years of professional experience in housing and economic community development, policy working. We need someone at the state legislature that understands how to create policy and how to execute it and how to evaluate it. And I am that candidate that brings that wealth of experience. On top of that, I am the only candidate raising children. No one has more skin in the game than a mother coming to the ballot to get to the state legislature. I need to create the next generation of community wellness for our children and the future generations. I will be convicted to the passion of all the policies that are around housing, eradicating poverty, and creating workforces. I am proudly endorsed by the firefighters, law enforcement, and the California Teachers Association. I am the only candidate that has earned their support. Those are three critical spaces of the state of California that need strong leadership, and I have been bestowed with that honor to represent those entities. And I hope to represent you at the state of California and bring my 30 years of public policy experience. I'm also endorsed by the Latino caucus, the legislative caucus, which is 1/3 of the legislature, who would also love to create policies with me at the state. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for being here and being part of this very important discussion. This does conclude today's candidate roundtable for member of the State Assembly, District 15. Once again, your candidates are Anna Marie Avila Farias, Karen Mitchoff, Monica Wilson, Sonia Lito could not attend. For more information about your candidates, you can go to vote411.org, and to view this broadcast online or to get more information, you can go to contracostavote.gov/elections. I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU, and as your moderator today, I want to thank you for watching and remind you, do not forget to vote on March 5th.